Hey guys, Ike from One Game. Today I want to talk about Dishonored in comparison with Dishonored 2. So Dishonored 2 is coming out, my most anticipated game of the year. I talk about it a bunch in my channel. But there's some stuff that I'm kind of worried about Dishonored 2 and the change that is coming up. So I know this is a type of clickbait video people like to do because, well, it's easy to talk about a sequel of a game and compare it to the past game and make you a point about, well, maybe the first game is better than the next game and the next game is going to be bad or stuff like that. And I know a lot of people like to do that, but this isn't kind of the case, but this is just kind of some of the stuff that I kind of looked at and can be debated in different way whether you think it would help the game or it would hurt the game. So what I'm talking about is the core design of Dishonored. So the core design of Dishonored is a immersive sim game. So for those of you who don't know, immersive sim games are games that allow players to have a lot of agency in terms of gameplay. So it let player do things and let player make decisions within the game that influence the outcome of the game or the result of an action of the game. So those are really cool type of genre of game. You know, usually they are in first person, and a famous example is games like Deus Ex and games like Dishonored, both of which are a great example of immersive sim game because it allows players to do things within the game in different way, and it respects the player agency. They do it by giving player tools and abilities and different things that player can utilize in their own different way to complete or accomplish a task based on their own decision and their approach and their creativity when they go through or play the game. So that is kind of like the definition, short definition of an immersive sim game. If you want to look into it, there's a lot of video on the internet and there's a lot of article talking about and genre of immersive sim game. It's more of a core design philosophy when I look at it, and I hate to put game in types of genre because that kind of ruin video game. And you know, adventure game have suffer a lot from that for a very long time until the Telltale people make games like Walking Dead and Wolf Among Us and Tales for the Borderland and other type of Telltale game that unchanged the chain that is the adventure genre that force player to make these dumb quests and have these obscure puzzles that player have to figure out or look to a guide in order to just even understand the concept of the game. So you know, when you put a game in a genre, that become a problem because you don't want to limit yourself in the genre. So Dishonored is always the core principle, is always an immersive sim game. So when we know that, we kind of understand the design philosophy that go with it. You know, the ability to let player play stealthily, right? You know, you can stealth through the level, or you can go gun blazing. You can play lethally, killing everyone in the game, or you can play non-lethally, you know, sneaking around, ghosting through level, never being detected without letting anyone know you were there. And when you start seeing that, you start seeing, oh, okay, so these are the design of the immersive sim game. It was designed to let player have choice and respect the player way in which they want to play the game. That is being oozed out of Dishonored every time you play through it. You know, you always gonna see these type of design philosophy within the game when you play through it. You know, like the way in which it allows you to combine the abilities and the tools in a meaningful way. Like, you know, you can put a mine on a rat and then possess a rat and then move it around, and then right before the mine explodes, you unpossess yourself off of the rat. Or maybe you use blink in conjunction with the high jump so you can go up really high spot in the map. There's a lot of example of it online. There's a lot of people who utilize a lot of these in a cool and interesting way, and that can only happen because of the design philosophy that Arcane Studio have with Dishonored. And that's the core principle of Dishonored: create an immersive sim game that allows players to have stealth, hack and slash action, giving player agency of choice both in terms of the gameplay and the story as well. You can affect the story based on the way you play the game and the choices you make. So that's the core design of Dishonored. Now when we move into Dishonored 2, I start feeling like a lot of those core design are being tucked away, are being moved out. And now you can look at it both ways. You might think, oh, okay, that's alright. You know, they want to change. Like I said, you know, adventure games are being remade by genre for a very long time. When Telltale game come out with their own game focusing on story and characters and meaningful choices instead of these obscure puzzle and stuff like that, that genre become very successful, and now we have a very successful genre. And right now, you know, a lot of adventure game are coming out that is very accessible and players like to play it and engage in new and different story and fantasizing in different world. That's super cool that they managed to do that. But Dishonored have always been a game about immersive sim. It's about immersing the player into the world, Dunbar, or in Dishonored 2 it would be Sakanos, which is a city in the south. But that would change if we start changing some stuff, which there's some that I'm worried about. The first is there's gonna be a voice protagonist, which I always say is a good thing, but when you start thinking about it, would that influence the way you play the game? Now, when I talk about the league gameplay that we have for Dishonored that I mentioned in the last video, the league analysis gameplay, one of the point I mentioned is that Emily make a comment about the environment she's in. Particularly, she was in a building and approaching another building. So I think what you're supposed to do is hop from that building to the another building without falling down. So obviously, if you fell down, I assume that you would probably die, and that's why they put a voice line for Emily, so that player would know, okay, so I have to jump over this gap or use blink to hop over it, or far reach in Emily case, in order to get across to the other side. Now that's a good thing as a form of tutorial to teaching player how to play the game or how to navigate the areas, but it also influences the decision, and it doesn't respect the player agency. It doesn't respect player ideas and interpretation of things, and that can be a good and bad thing. So some people may say, oh, you can just ignore it, right? Ignore what they say. Can you? I mean, like when someone tells you to do something, or when someone points something out to you, you know it. You can't say that, oh, if I spoil you the ending of a movie, you can't pretend that you don't know it. So obviously it's gonna influence the way you think when you go into a movie, right? If you go into a movie knowing the ending of the movie, you're gonna go in expecting the ending of the movie, right? So you're not gonna enjoy the movie as much. And this is kind of the same case, when you know that the gap might probably kill you because she said it's a long way down, because, well, she looked down and it's a long way down, right? That might influence the way you play. When you first come across this, you might go, oh, if I hop down there, what would happen? A lot of players would do that. I would definitely do that. I would be like, quick save, hop down, see what happened, right? If you die, just quick load, no problem, right? It's try and error and like to do that, right? To figure out the game and the mechanic of the game. But when Emily said that, you might say, oh, okay, so this gap would probably kill me. I should jump over. And in many ways, some people might say, oh, well, that improved the way in which I immerse the game. Some player might say that spoiled the experience that I want to have with the game. So it's a controversial thing to add a voice protagonist into the game. Not to mention you can't turn it off, which they already confirmed you cannot turn it off. They at first thought that they want to make the game in the way that they can let you turn it off, but eventually when they start designing it, they start realizing, oh wait, this is such a big core design of the game that they can't remove it. They can't have player toggle it off, right? So we have to have it now. And so for some, that might be considered a spoiler. That's the example that I like to give, because it kind of hints you at doing something. It's kind of tell you to do something based on the opinion of the character, in which you could argue that helped you immerse, but some player might argue the opposite as well. And the second thing, that's the first thing. The first thing is the voice, and the second thing I'm worried about, we're gonna have an entire level dedicated on one mechanic. This might sound cool to some of you, it doesn't to me. If you saw the E3 gameplay, specifically the one where Corvo or Emily, I'm not sure, used an item that allowed them to go back in time and go forward in time. So you can hop back in time and hop forward in time, and that kind of influences the level, so you can play it quite differently. You can go back in time, do something that influences the future, and then you go into the future, taking out the enemy, going back in time to sneak by the guard, or stuff like that. You can do a lot of cool stuff with that thing. But Howie Smith has already confirmed that within that level, you wouldn't be allowed to use the normal ability that you have, the blink, the far reach, the domino, the whatever the ability that the outsider granted you. That is being taken away in that level. Now they're gonna make it make sense in terms of story. They're talking about outsider taking your power away so you can use the mechanic. So in terms of story, it would make sense, and I don't have much of a problem. Every game have different wacky story. I never have a problem with Dishonored story, and I probably never will, unless it becomes super stupid, which it hasn't for me yet. And I have a really low standard in terms of story. I can watch shitty movie and have a good time. So story is never a problem with me. For me, it's the mechanic. So when you have a mechanic that rely on one thing, this one ability, which is really cool ability, hopping back from forward and backward, doing cool different shit from timeline, forward timeline, going backward, taking out enemies, sneaking by enemy in different timeline, going back, taking out that guy, and doing all those crazy shit sound amazing. But does that not respect the player agency in terms of using other abilities? We have the outsider ability, we have the crossbow bow, the gun that Emily has. They have a lot of stuff like a charge attack, or other crazy stuff that we have in the game. All those are be taken away and remove player the agency that they have in order to have this cool level for us to play with. And now you can compare that to maybe a set piece in an action game, and those are always cool. Like if you play games like Call of Duty, they have a lot of set pieces. But is that where you want the direction for the game to go. And some people may argue that that is entirely okay. It's okay for the game to change the design of the game in one level so that player can have different playabilities with the game and trying new and different things. But the new and different thing doesn't add, when it adds something to the game, when something adds and it doesn't subtract anything to the game, I always support those decisions. But with this decision, it adds something without getting something back. It adds a really, really, really cool things, but it doesn't give you the option that you already have back. So I don't know. I don't think it's because of the story. I feel like it's the limitation of the mechanic is the reason they make this decision. I feel like if you have too many abilities and hopping from forward and backward, it might be too complicated for them to compute or make it work in terms of the game. I don't think it's the story. The story in Dishonored seems to always take a backseat. They always have interesting story. I mean, like, Dishonored have interesting story. I always like it. But like, it never overshadowed the gameplay. So what I assume is that this is in fact a limitation, and they always, I guess they want to do this because they showcased it in E3 and make quite a big deal about it, and a lot of people were impressed by it. But at the same time, you have to question, does that compromise the design of the game? So yeah, that's the two point I want to post. The voice protagonist, I don't know, I feel it's a good thing, to have a voice protagonist to actually give the character voice, especially Corvo and Emily, in terms of the story perspective. But in terms of gameplay perspective, does that influence my decision when I play the game? Does that remove the immersive sim aspect out of the game because there's someone next to me telling me what to do and kind of hinting me at things I should do optimally? And the second reason, is it good to have a level dedicated on one mechanic that compromises the entire core value of your game? It might be a really, really cool level, but like, is it good to have that? I mean, like, at the end of the day, Dishonored 2 is a AAA game. It's a AAA game being published by Bethesda that is trying to make money. So having a cool set piece and something that they can market to the market would probably help the game a lot. But in terms of artistic and the mechanic of the game and the design philosophy of the game, do you think that compromised the game? And like I said, I love the game. I'm not trying to make this video to make it sound like Dishonored 2 is going to be bad in comparison to Dishonored 1. I'm not trying to compare them head to head. I'm comparing the design philosophy of the game, the design philosophy of immersive simulation that let player do the way they want. Let player at the full capacity of agency, of decision making that they have and decide to do. So it's all about you, all about the player. And I know there always is going to be a compromise because you can't have a perfect game that reacts to everything you does. That is completely true. But those two examples I point out seems to compromise a lot of those core value and principle of immersive sim. So does that hurt? Does that help? What do you guys think? Leave a comment down below. Tell me what you think, and see you guys later. Peace.